my name is Lon Safko, co-author of the John Wiley & Sons, the Social Media Bible, the largest book ever written on the subject of social media. Today we're here with Marc Canter from People Aggregator, and we'll be speaking about social networks and social networking. So let's get started. Marc, could you tell our listeners who you are and what People Aggregator is, and maybe kind of that little project that you've done in the past?
Okay, so hi, my name is Marc. I'm the CEO of a company called Broadband Mechanics, and our product is called the People Aggregator, which is a white label social networking platform, and we use it to build out what social networks for standalone brands like Bell Canada or Sacramento Kings and lots of other companies I can't tell you right now, else I'd have to kill you. My past is that I've been in the business for about 25 years. I started a company called Macromind. That became Macromedia. So I'm a toolsmith by trade, and watched the blogging world and the world of what I call the open mesh evolve over the past few years. Open social networking and SOF and structured content and digital lifestyle aggregation. It all leads to basically open is the new black.
Okay, and that's kind of is what we're seeing is that we had spoke earlier about the power going to the people, is the opening up and the two-way communication and customers actually having a say and non-censored, which is something that I only just realized that for once we have a medium where we can say what's on our mind without being censored.
Right. I mean, certainly in the world of expression and blogging, that's kind of obvious. But the other thing is where the user's data, their profile record, their social graph, also it should be owned by them. It shouldn't be locked inside of Facebook or MySpace. So we started to see standards like OpenID and OAuth and a new effort from Google called Open Social, which they're using to build lots of great solutions with. All these are standards that are emerging. We're even seeing Microsoft opening up, believe it or not.
Yeah, believe it or not. Well, and that's going to save us a lot of work, too, because if we can disseminate our information more widespread, it's going to make it a lot easier for us to build our social networks, because I know just trying to keep up the profiles in 7 or 8 or 10 different websites, that takes a lot of work.
Yeah, and again, I'm a toolsmith, and we're trying to build some tools to help solve that. We call one of them a persona editor, which helps you stay on top of managing all your different personae. Okay. The other thing is we're seeing a big trend going from giant centralized social networks, these kind of horizontal networks, to tens of thousands of niche vertical networks, right? And a typical person will be a member of 1 or 2 horizontal networks, but maybe even 5 or 10 niche networks. So whether that's the school you go to or the after-school activities that you're doing with your friends or kids, there could be affinities like reggae or chocolate.
Right.
So the trick here is to have a blueprint and a world within that can practically adapt to the fact that Microsoft's going to do live mesh and Google's going to do this and Yahoo's going to have their own thing. And, along the line, we have to leave some crumbs on the table for us smaller software guys who also want to get involved, and we want to mesh into this huge world and perhaps build our own ecosystem.
And that's a really good point, because if you look at the major players in the social media ecosphere, you're really talking about revenues in the billions with a B, as opposed to us little guys who are trying to eke out a living.
Right, and we've seen more and more consolidation over the years. I mean, this is where us old-timers can tell you back in the 80s when it was simply between Microsoft and Apple, right? And that world has changed now. So along the way, the other thing we've seen the rise of is international. And maybe the government of Singapore or Dubai want to do some of this stuff, but they don't want to use Yahoo or Google, right? And you see innovation coming out of India and China and Russia. And I mean, this is no longer just a game that's played off of in Silicon Valley.
That's another good point about the global network. One of the things I looked at your People Aggregator website today, and I was amazed, not just that there's blogs from all over the world, which is fairly commonplace, but what I saw was blogs in their native language. The kanji and Arabic, and it was really amazing to see that.
Yeah, I mean, this is totally the world we're growing in. I mean, even at this point, Facebook is 2/3 international.
Wow.
Okay? So I think you're going to see more and more. Like, oh, by the way, needless to say, the Russian government is tightly coupled to these cyber terrorists, because when they were having a fight with Estonia and when they were invading Georgia, sure enough, it's also accompanied by a cyber attack, right? And so we're starting to see the realities of technology and politics merge in with the economics. When the oil industry is attacked and they're claimed that they're making too much money, they turn and say, well, look, the software business, they make even higher margins than we do.
Yeah.
As if that matters, right?
Right.
This is somehow to deflect the attention, right?
Yep.
We're finding the technology is intrinsic and embedded everywhere. It's no longer you can keep your head in the sand. And so the issues of all software being about people and open standards and users being able to control their rights and this general notion of social media, as we move forward, this is going to affect everything.
And that's one of the things I appreciate when we have these conversations is you're really not just looking 3 years or 5 years or even 10 years out, but you really do have a vision of what the 20-year picture is going to be. And I think you did that with Macromedia and the stuff that you were doing in the 80s as well.
Yeah, I call it the curse of the visionary. You know, we started our company right in the beginning of 1984, right when the Macintosh came out. And we were convinced that by 1990, that was like the big year, you know. And by 1990, everybody would have video and audio, and all computers would be multimedia. And we were right. We were just kind of off by 10 years.
Exactly.
Right? And then we put out this tool, and it was going to do animated advertising and all this great interactive stuff. And we were off by 15 years.
Yep.
When I saw the web first and these kind of simple HTML graphics, I felt as if we were going backwards. Because, you know, we did have graphics and video on our screens in the early 90s. It was coming over the wire. They were coming off of a CD-ROM. And it took about 10 or 15 years for the world to catch up. Just now, with Flickr and YouTube, do we now have full media on our machines, right? And so we're seeing a number of different factors. One of them I call persistent content. So like the BBC or NPR are going to put up all this content into the cloud, and it's going to be there available full time. And we've got Hulu and iTunes, and it's all there, and Wikipedia, and all this information, this knowledge is sitting there in the clouds waiting for us. So whole new kinds of applications and services will be born that rely upon that stuff, you know, and they're going to be able to rely upon storage and computing grids and all this incredible stuff that, you know, even 5 years ago was only a dream and a glimmer in our eyes. So if we jump forward 5 or 10 years and imagine what it'll be like, now, of course, there'll still be normal people who still just use email.
Yeah, normal
but, you know, it
people.
takes a long time for stuff to disseminate through society.
This is absolutely true. Matter of fact, back in the 80s when I was developing computer systems for the physically disabled, I was using HyperCard and SuperCard, and at that point, actually, my company was your largest developer.
There you go.
Using your tools. So I was out there with you.
I can't tell you how many people have come up to me and said, oh, you know, let me start my career.
You did. And actually, your software went into the computer, the first computer to save a human life. So thank you for that.
There you go. Well, I do know that, you know, this thing called carpal tunnel, you know, like the disease in the hand. So I know that the doctor who first figured it out and first described it to people, it was from San Francisco General, and I know that he used VideoWorks to do those animations.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
See, that's pretty cool. It's amazing how many lives you touch.
Yeah, and so, you know, now I kind of had this little bit of Orson Welles syndrome, you know, it's like many people never, you know, exceed past first successes.
Right.
So I've got this, you know, some people got a chip on the shoulder, and I have a large log.
You
know, so I carry around this weight, and so it's hard for me to think small, and so I'm working on a book called How to Build the Open Mesh. It's kind of like a treatise or a roadmap for how people can work together and cooperate and to look for. So whenever you see that a bunch of people are doing the same thing, then that's a good message that's your standard, right? I mean, there's an example, or how to create a dashboard of reusable user interface objects that you can mix and match and choose which blogging tool you want to use, which IM client, Twitter, or friend feed, or, you know, like, so it can configure your environment on the fly. And I believe that's where we'll be in about 10 or 15 years, and so the trick is how to get from here to there.
And that's a really good point, too. A lot of people really are just, there's quite a few that are just learning to send email. If someone was reading the Social Media Bible book and they wanted to understand more about People Aggregator and the open mesh and the things that we've just kind of talked about. Where would they begin? What would they do?
Well, okay, so currently, Aggregator is offered as a white label, which means that we sell it to marketeers and brands and ad agencies and stuff like that. The company site is broadbandmechanics.com. The demo site is peopleaggregator.org. Oh, excuse me, peopleaggregator.net. .org is where the source code is. We give away the source code for nonprofits. And also my blog is Marc, M-A-R-C, .blogs, B-L-O-G-S, .it. That Marc blogs it.
That's cool. That's really cool. So tell me more specifically what your main product is. What let's say People Aggregator.
So, all right, so the People Aggregator is a social networking platform. So if you go look at a site called on1.com or bellvideostore.ca or mykingsworld.com, and let me see what else, gtchannel.com, itimes.com. Well, these are all networks, amiche.donomaderna.com. These are all built with our platform. So we both sell the license, the source code, or we actually run it as a software as a service model. So anybody who wants to get into the social networking business or add social features into their existing site can use our platform.
Great.
So with Bell Canada, they had a movie downloading site, and they had already built out the basic catalog and transactions, etc. But we add in social features into their movie downloading site. So now you can leave comments and reviews and rate things and do tagging and declare yourself a fan of a movie. And that's all code that's coming off of our server, yet the Bell Canada movie downloading site is coming off of their server.
Okay. So can you name a couple of the people like Bell Canada, some other people that are using it, maybe what they're using it for, as an example?
Right. So Bell Canada is bellvideostore.ca. Another is a large media company called Radio One. And so they have a site called on1.com, and they have a bunch of sister sites because we also have an aggregation engine and a CMS publishing system. So they've got a whole bunch of sister sites that also we built for them. Okay. GT Channel is a great kind of niche network for car enthusiasts and people who are into drifting. Huh. Then there's a what we call meta network called socialworld.com. These are for people who put on events or produce concerts. And so they could get their own network, and it's built. We built it for our customer called Activa. So they sell tickets and do ticketing online.
Activa's great.
So now you can get your own network and promote and use the network to promote your concerts and events. Great. And then the Activa web services are there, so you can buy and sell tickets to your event.
Activa is great. I did it with a seminar company that I owned, and Activa really provides a great service.
Right, yeah. So they are a client of ours. So they came to us, and we built them out a meta network. What that means is that they'll go to a campus, let's say University of Texas or really anywhere, and they'll create one whole meta network for the campus. Mm-hmm. And then like the frat boys come along, or like the DJs, or like even the school itself, or some other kind of party promotion company. And each of those companies can get their own network. And Activa will host and run the whole thing for them. So in our case, we built the thing to spec for Activa, and then they license the source code and they run it and build it themselves.
Wow. So that's
That's all available to us. And so, I provide a little consulting and upfront help. We're kind of a boutique shop. Oh. And we've got developers around the world in India and Italy and Germany and New Zealand.
Holy moly. Okay. What about tying in with some of the other social media tools, kind of like Twitter and Flickr and,
Right, well, so we've had for over 2 years now, we've had a feature called OpenID. Okay, so that allows you to at least log in and a single sign-off. We've also been importing both Flickr and Delicious, information into the social network. Now, the hot new feature from this summer is the notion of importing my full social graph from these networks. So both MySpace, Facebook, and Google have made this functionality possible, and in the fall we'll be updating what we've given to Bell Canada and with some other sites which we're still working on. They'll be featuring these kind of import from the social network into, and when you come in, you can bring a whole host of, not only just your profile record, but your list of friends and your photographs and your music and your interests. All this information can be automatically moved over from one social network into ours.
Very powerful. Wow.
Yeah, and that's, again, part of the trends of this mesh is that the users have been demanding this stuff. 3-4 years ago, I was one of the only guys who was asking for it. But nowadays, it's a pretty standard feature that everyone is providing. And it's been about a year since Facebook came out with their platform. Mm-hmm. And then that influenced MySpace to do this and pressured Google to do that and Microsoft. And so they're all trying to keep up with the Joneses now,
Yeah, I remember last year when I met you at the Arizona Entrepreneurship Conference, you were talking about OpenID and a lot of the things that we're talking about here today. And it was kind of new, really, to everybody. But you're right. Over the last year, people are really catching on. And the funny thing is the customers are demanding it, and the companies are simply giving the customers what they're asking for.
Right, and so this book I'm working on, or it's really a series of treaties and reference designs, is really kind of, okay, now that we've got that, what's next? Right? What do we do with it? Single sign-on is great, but it's not really a solution. You got to focus on benefits and how these things are going to help not only end users, but how is open going to help vendors, like our customers? Why would they want to open up and let users move back and forth? Mm-hmm. So we have to be very explicit with these folks and show them real solutions.
That's a great point. That's a really good point. Again, you started to talk a little bit about the company. You say it's kind of a boutique shop. When did you found it? Who founded it? Why did you found it?
Well, in its current iteration, it was founded in January 2005. Mm-hmm. I've used the name since 1999, so this is really version 2 of Broadband Mechanics. And it also has a clear, contiguous line of intellectual property since I left Macromedia in 1992. So I am the major shareholder, and I don't necessarily get along with, shall we say, venture capitalists and the typical kind of rip-off model that they like to propound.
Vulture capitalists, you said?
Yeah. So it's just not my game. I've already been there. I know their game. Mm-hmm. I know how to out them at that game. And so I prefer to kind of, bootstrap, as we say. Mm-hmm. And so the purpose of creating the company, of course, is to allow me to continue to do what I'm good at, which is to build solutions in the software.
Bring the software into the future vision that you have.
Right. I mean, in one sense, I'm kind of like a minister without portfolio. It's like I don't have hundreds of people reporting to me or anywhere near the resources I want to implement half my ideas. So that means that I give a lot of them away. Mm-hmm. And so I really very much believe in open IDs, just like as much as open ideas.
I like that. That's clever. Very good. Well, is there anything else that you'd like to tell our listeners about what you're working on that you might think might be helpful?
Probably the most fascinating thing about this interview would be to listen to it in a year or 2 years from now. Right, because one of the challenges you have as far as creating a book or a directory is that how fast that information gets out of sync, right? Mm-hmm. And so as much as you'd like to put out a dead tree version, really only by having an online version can you make sure that it stays up to date. And this media that we're recording right now, these bits that are getting digitized, they are also a timestamp as to where the world was as of August 2008. And so, if we return here in 1 or 2 years from now and stand back at the evolution of things, I mean, who would have thought that 3 years ago that, we'd be here today? Mm-hmm. So, to me, history is a very fascinating thing, and that time is one of the major dimensions we need to focus on.
That's a really great observation. I mean, think of that in the past where Westinghouse was telling everybody that Edison was going to electrocute everybody, or the Wright brothers, it would never get off the ground, or Henry Ford, get a horse, or even Thomas Watson's quote where he said, who would ever want a personal computer?
Yep.
We're at that threshold again, and you're leading the way.
Thank you very much.
So, Mark, one more time, can you give our listeners some websites or places that they can find your information, learn more about this?
Yeah, I'm a heavy-duty blogger, so marc.blogs.it, marc.blogs.it. It's my blog. And from there you'll see links to the How to Build the Open Mesh, to my platform, peopleaggregator.net, and to all the solutions that we've been building.
Awesome, Mark. Truly, thank you. I'd like to thank Marc Canter from Broadband Mechanics for being with us today and sharing those incredible insights and visions of the future. This is Lon Safko, the co-author of the Social Media Bible, published by John Wiley & Sons. Be sure to check out our other valuable social media tactics, tools, and strategies that can be found in the Social Media Bible book and on our website at www.thesocialmediabible.com. For more information about me, Lon Safko, or to learn how I can speak at your company or your next event, please visit my website at www.lonsafko.com. And really, thank you, Marc, and thank you, everyone, for being with us here today.